Really do appreciate everybody taking the time out of their busy day to talk about my favorite topic, which is builder's risk. This is another one of our webinars in our ongoing series of educational webinars to talk about the builder's risk course of construction in the marine line of business. Today, we're going to talk about some of the coverages that we build into our coverage form automatically. And when I say automatically, they're part of our coverage form. They're not endorsed on. There is no additional premium charge. So we take a lot of pride in our coverage form, and we've been thinking about this. So these are recent changes to our form, pretty much approved everywhere. I think we're still working on New York and California, like always, but most every other state it's up and running. And so we're going to talk about those coverages. But before I get into that, I thought I would just mention what's happening here in the state of Florida. We have a little storm that's making landfall kind of as we speak down in Port Charlotte, Florida, Southwest Florida, probably 5 to 6 hours from here in Jacksonville. So usually I say beautiful Jacksonville, but today it's a little stormy and the storm's coming this way, but I think we'll be okay at this part of the state. But I am worried about our friends that live down there. So let's all be thinking about them. We have done webinars on preparing for these storms, and hopefully they're prepared. The builders are prepared and the agents down there. So I wish them the best and just be thinking about them. All right, so let's talk about our coverage form. And what we're going to do today is run through these coverages, and then we'll open it up for questions. So if you have any questions, hold those to the end, and we'll do our best to get to all the questions. So this is something that gets a lot of discussion in the world today, and we'll call it the green building, kind of the trend, trying to build houses that are green. And we're going to define what we mean by green in a little bit. But what we decided to do is to take a statement and say, we're going to build in some of this coverage automatically into our form. So what we're going to talk about on this screen is built in automatically. There's no premium charge, there's no endorsement. You don't have to ask for it. It's automatically included. And you'll hear me use the term LEED, L-E-E-D. So hold that thought. It's a third-party green building certification. It's used worldwide. It's kind of the standard now. We recognize that. I will say if you have a builder that's building some other kind of green certification, I would check with your underwriter to make sure it's what we call green building. But we know LEED is. So what this coverage is that we build in automatically is, you can see this, I'm not going to read the form to you, but basically there's a covered cause of loss to covered property, and it was a green building certified building, LEED certified building. So now it has to be rebuilt. So you're going to rebuild it, and now they have to come back out and recertify what was built. So there's a cost to that recertification. We build in up to $10,000 automatic coverage for recertifying the building green. So we just think that's another way we can help and encourage these sustainable types of building techniques. So just keep in mind that this is, to my knowledge, very few carriers do this, and so we're proud of this. So once again, $10,000 automatic coverage for recertification of a green building. And this is an example, just a simple example. So we have a homeowner that seeks out a custom home builder, and they want to talk to the builder about building a greenhouse. That's very important to the homeowner. So they find a builder that advertises that we build houses with LEED certification. As you can see at the bottom of the screen too, that stands for Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, LEED. So now the home is 90% complete and has been built to all LEED certifications. The point system, I won't go into that today, but they have to build it to certain qualifications. Covered cause of loss, a fire destroys the home, and now the home has to be rebuilt. Now, once that home is rebuilt, it has to be recertified. As I said earlier, we will pay for that recertification cost, and we'll pay up to $10,000, which probably would pay for most recertification of most structures, most residential single-family structures. But once again, built-in coverage, automatic. So the last thing I want to talk about on green building is the endorsement that we offer, and it's called the Green Building Coverage Endorsement. and it has 3 parts to it. Now, this is an endorsement that you have to request, and there is a premium charge, but it is available to us in our program. So it's the green building endorsement. And what this does, without going into great detail, there's really 3 parts to it. So one of the qualifications on the LED certification is indoor air quality. So you would build this in, and so we have to restore the equipment that restores that guarantees the indoor air quality. That's part of this endorsement. The other part is recycling of debris. So we have a covered cause of loss, and now we have to recycle the debris, and there's a cost to that. It's not just simply picking it up and sticking it in a dumpster. It has to be recycled. We pay for that. And the last part, which I find pretty interesting, is the cost to buy replacement electricity or water. Part of the certification is the way the electricity and the water is gathered, be it with solar or some other way, could even be wind power, who knows what it is. So now, because of a covered cause of loss, we have to go buy this electricity and water. We will support purchasing that from the public utility, whatever that cost may be for that green energy. So once again, this is just our commitment to the construction industry and encouraging builders to build green. Simple as that. So keep that in mind, and it's one of the things we're very proud of. We built in another coverage called contract penalties, and I'm not going to read this all to you today either, but I'm going to give you an example of this. And this is something that's built in automatically up to $10,000 coverage. And it's really, if you think about a builder that enters into an agreement, the agreement has to be in writing, has to be before the loss. And part of this agreement is that the project will be done on time. Now, because of a covered cause of loss, there's a delay, and they did not get done in time. So there's a penalty assigned. We will automatically pay that penalty up to $10,000. So kind of a hybrid time element coverage, but we'll call that contract penalty coverage. And once again, this is automatically built into the form. It's not an endorsement. You do not have to ask for it. So I think it's kind of a slick deal. And this is an example. So once again, the named insured has to be a general contractor builder in order to make this coverage work. And they've written into a written agreement, has to be in writing, and it has to be prior to the start of construction. I use this example: the tropical storm damages the home under construction. So there was a covered cause of loss to covered property. And now there's going to be a penalty assigned because it's not going to be done on time. So we would pay up to $10,000 towards that penalty in this situation. So once again, our commitment to the building industry. This is a coverage that some carriers have, some don't, but we built it in automatically and give away $10,000 coverage. So just kind of to summarize our automatic coverages, I think we're up to about 20 of them now. I'm going to highlight a few more. But when I say automatic coverage, it's part of the program, part of our coverage form. You don't have to worry about asking for them. It's automatically included in our form. So let's talk about a few other of these. And this is the one that comes up. We've done an entire webinar on soft costs before. Probably one of the most misunderstood coverages in builder's risk is soft cost. So I'm going to take a stab at trying to just take a few minutes on it. It is different than business interruption and loss of income. This is soft cost coverage. I know there's a lot of confusion. You need to look at the form. We are proud of this too, that we build in $100,000 automatic coverage for soft costs into our form. Now, if you want more than 100,000, because it's whatever the project needs more than 100,000, you have to ask us for it. There will be a charge for that, but up to 100,000 automatically included. So let's take a stab at that. That second paragraph on this screen is very important. So we'll pay the actual soft costs arising out of the delay period. I know what a delay period is. To the extent these expenses are actually and necessarily incurred by you to enable you to begin your operations in the manner originally planned. So if you think about completed value builder's risk, we had labor, materials, and overhead, and even profit if you want to include it. Soft cost is different than that. These are reoccurring expenses. So you're building a house, something happens, covered cause of loss. We always start with that: covered property, covered cause of loss. Now you got to rebuild it. You'll have certain expenses that reoccur that were not contemplated in the completed value. That could be insurance premiums, interest on a construction loan, advertising fees, architect fees. And these are different than overhead costs. So it's truly soft cost. So the good news for you, though, is you don't have to be an expert on this. You just have to know that the Victor Builders Risk Program builds in $100,000 of soft cost coverage automatically. So just to point you in a few directions, if you want to dive deeper into this subject, we do have a webinar, Understanding Soft Costs. We spent an entire webinar talking about it. We have an article for you, making sure that you explain it correctly to our insureds. And we do have a soft cost worksheet. We put that out there because a lot of times I get agents will ask me, like, what limit should I pick? So we created a worksheet that lists all the things that we could think of that are truly soft costs that would reoccur in the event of a claim. And you can sit down with your builder and say, all right, you contemplate all of these things. A general rule of thumb, and don't hold me to this, but usually around 10% of the completed value of a structure is the soft cost, desired soft cost limit. In other words, if you're building $1 million house and you have, that's the labor, materials, overhead, profit, let's say, is $1 million, about 10% limit would be required to adequately cover soft cost. So as you can see, we build in 100,000 automatically. So you're probably okay up to about $1 million structure. Goes over $1 million, you might want to think about filling out the worksheet and adding a little more to the $100,000 limit. But that's really up to you, the agent. Another essential coverage that I want to talk about is property in transit. We get asked this question all the time. So we have a home being built, and there's always the window package, the trusses, whatever is being delivered by some third party. Sometimes the builders make the incorrect assumption that all of these materials are fully covered. Now, I could say sometimes they run into a trouble because maybe the materials are being purchased by the subcontractor and not the general contractor. And maybe the sub didn't arrange with the transit company to have full coverage. There just could be a gap in coverage. So our form, we include transit coverage designed to cover building materials that are earmarked for our structure, and we build in up to $500,000 transit coverage automatically. So that's a lot of coverage for the typical home being built. So odds are you might never need to increase that. It should be enough for most projects that our builders get involved in. If you need more, let us know. I don't know why you need more, but you might need to. But it's a good little coverage. Other carriers build it in, but I very rarely see them built in at that limit. Like I said, we build in $500,000. Here's another one that comes into play now with projects being delayed. So let's say we have a builder that's built a house and the window package is delivered, but unfortunately, there's been a delay in some of the other building materials. So the builder doesn't have the labor or the time or whatever to install the windows. So instead of leaving the windows in a non-enclosed building, they're going to say, we're going to store these until we're ready to install them. So they store them in a warehouse somewhere. Well, a lot of forms would not cover this. They'd say, we only cover building materials once to deliver to the job site. Our form says we will cover those materials that are temporarily stored at another location as long as they're earmarked for our project and the policy's been written for the correct amount of money, labor, materials, overhead. We have up to $500,000 in temporary storage location automatically built into our form. So you're starting to get the idea. These automatic coverages are all built in, and there's a lot of coverage there. They're not little coverages. These are large coverages, and I would not want to be the agent that has to explain to a builder that they've had a large claim because they didn't write the right policy. So you don't have to worry about that with our form. So I'll take a pause just for a second there. That was kind of the highlights of the new coverages, the green building coverage and the contract penalty coverage. And I highlighted 3 of the other automatic coverages we get asked about a lot. soft cost transit, and temporary storage. So that's 5 of them, and I think there's a total now of 20 or 21 that we automatically build in. So I won't go through all 20 of them for you because we don't have enough time today, but I just thought I wanted to touch on the automatic coverages very quickly. And kind of getting ready to wrap this up, I always close this out with our pass-through risk. What we're looking for, and this is our bread and butter. This is the stuff that's right in our wheelhouse, and it's not complicated. We're looking for ground up new construction. If it's in a coastal area, we can do this up to $1.5 million in value. If it's inland, we can do up to $3 million, as long as it's not more than 30% complete, as long as our builder has at least 2 years experience in the industry. It's ISO protection class 1 to 7. That will flow through our system with no underwriting hold, which means you enter the basic data, construction, occupancy, protection, exposure. You click a button, get a quote, click a button and get a policy. That's the pass-through risk, and that's what we're looking for. So as you look around your areas where you live, look around what's being built. Are they building structures that are under $1.5 million coastal, $3 million inland? Is it ground up new construction? I have a feeling they are. So be thinking of our program, and it only takes a minute or two to get a policy in our system, in our portal. It's called V squared, by the way. So the last thing I like to say is here's our team. There's a picture of this Jeff Benson guy. I don't know about him. And Donna Berry is our senior underwriter. So if you have any questions or concerns of any kind, by all means, pick up the phone and call me. And the best number to get us is always on the 800 number, 800-944-7472. So, and there's our general mailbox. You can send that to us. But pick up the phone and call me. It's a coverage question. You don't know how to write a particular line, a particular coverage. I'm here for you. It's kind of what I live for. So that's what I'd like to do now, is kind of open it up to questions. And Darcy, do we have any questions today?
Yes, we do. First
Good.
question, how is your turnaround time and appetite for other than ground up new construction?
All right, so like I said, we talked a lot about ground up new, and the other piece of builder's risk, there's really 2 pieces to it. We have remodeling renovation coverage. Sometimes that is like a tenant build out, so it's only remodeling coverage, there's no existing structure. And then the other piece that we do is an existing structure that's being remodeled and renovated. So we do write renovations, and we do write existing structure coverage with renovations. Now, I will say that we have a very robust coverage form. We have very good rates, but we do underwrite that risk a lot because there's more exposure from a builder's risk standpoint when you write an existing structure. There's the age of the structure. We ask a lot of questions about the scope of the project, because if it's a historical building and they're doing structural changes to it, we're not going to write that. It's too much exposure for us. But if it's a standard interior renovation, no load bearing aspects are being involved, no vertical square feet being added, there's a good chance we will write the coverage on that. So it's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but go ahead and submit it through V squared. It will probably generate an underwriting hold. We will review it and get back to you. But I will give you a little tip, because I ask agents all the time. So if you're in a really, really big hurry, which seems like everybody's in a hurry these days, they forgot to place the coverage, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning and the closing's at 2 o'clock and you need a price right away. So what I would do is I would submit the risk in V squared like you normally would, and then I would give it a few minutes, and then I would call the 800 number and get one of our team. That way we already have the basic information. Get us on the phone. We're going to make a decision, and we'll get you an answer as quick as possible. If you send it to mailboxes and email people or try to call people direct, sometimes it get lost in the shuffle. So submit it through V squared and then follow up with a call to the 800 number. And if that doesn't work, I want to know about it. So I'm always here for you, Jeff Benson, and you got my numbers and my email. So hopefully that helps out. But we do write that. It's about 1/3 of our book is renovations, remodeling type risk. Good question.
All right. So if you purchase additional green lead coverage, Do you get to take advantage of the built-in $10,000 coverage in the policy first and then layer on the additional green coverage purchase?
You would always get the 10,000. That's a good question. So you'd always get the $10,000 coverage. But if you want to buy those other aspects of the endorsement, you got to pay that. So yeah, you'd always get the 10,000. That's given. So you don't have to ask for that. If you want the full green building, you'll be charged for the full green building, but not that 10,000. Good question.
Right. Does your form include permission to occupy?
We do have, that gets a little tricky, but we did a webinar on, when coverage ceases. So under our form, let's say it's ground up new, it's an easier one to talk about. We give 90 days occupancy. So they can move in for up to 90 days and still have coverage under our form. But on that 91st day, there's no coverage. So and if there's ever a doubt, if it's a multifamily situation, you need to call the underwriter. And if it's a commercial situation, that's a little different too. If it's a commercial building, give us a call. We'll walk you through our form. But on a standard single family detached, single family dwelling, they have up to 90 days coverage. I will say this though, a little trick is don't have the builder charge rent, because once they charge rent, then it becomes a rental property and there's no coverage under our form. So it's only if they let it move in prior to closing or whatever it is, that's when the 90 days applies. If you need more, call your underwriter. We do have the ability to go more. We'll make a charge for it, but we can increase that 90 days if necessary. And a little warning to you, not all forms out there are the same. I've seen some forms that say they have no occupancy allowed, and others have limited occupancy, shorter time periods. So be very, very careful of that. Make sure you read whatever form you're selling. That's something that I've seen a lot of mistakes made. Good question.
All right. Do your policies contain liability with it?
No, this is a monoline, unsupported, course of construction, builder's risk in the marine program. So you answer the question, there is no liability coverage. I did a whole webinar on that one time too, and I don't want to open that can of worms today, but obviously if you have a general contractor builder, they're going to need a GL policy. So we don't write that, but so they need a GL policy. If you're insuring an owner of a structure and they're buying their own builder's risk, they might need some type of premises, the old OCP type coverage. They might need that. We do not sell that, but ours is just inland marine coverage. Good question.
All right. How can you adjust coverage for larger commercial and public structures to be above 10,000 for the green recertification?
I don't know if we can increase just that. I'm going to have to take that offline and get back to you. So Darcy, get a note who asked that, and I will verify how we can increase just that aspect of green building. That's a good point. I don't know exactly how. We've never been asked to increase it, so first time I've ever been asked. So.
All right. Do you write frame construction?
Pardon?
Do you write frame construction?
Oh, yes. 93% of all detached single-family homes in the United States are made out of frame. They're made out of lumber. So that's our number one thing that we write. So we write a lot of frame construction. Our program has capacity up to $5 million, depending on where it's located, the protection and the values. But $5 million is our top. We do not go over that. And I will be honest, if it gets over, 3 million, we start asking more questions. If it's over 1.5 million coastal or over 3 million inland, we still might do it, but we are going to ask more underwriting questions. But 5 million is our top. And we do not participate. So if you have a $10 million apartment being built or whatever, we cannot participate on that. So our maximum is 5 million. Now I will say if it's masonry non-combustible or fire resistant, which we actually have some NC buildings single families being built, especially in South Florida, They might be tested today too, by the way. We can go up to 10 million on some of those if it's truly M&C construction.
All right. So will you do Prorata Extensions considering all of the shortages and supply chain problems?
So our standard policy is fully earned, and I will say that I was going to touch on that today just because that's what we're seeing in the industry. We are extending policies every day. So if they're building $1 million home, I don't think they can do it in under 12 months. So what I would do is I'd write the 12-month policy, and after about 10, 11 months, and you know you're going to need more coverage, more length of time, all you have to do is notify us and we will extend the policy for whatever length we need. Another 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, even up to another year. So we would extend it for you on that second year. So that's kind of what I'm saying. I was going to take a little opportunity to say, definitely nothing under a year. I mean, it's just taking a year to build things, and it's taking a year and a half to build a lot of things. We will work with you on pro rata after the year is up, after 12 months. If you want to write something longer, we will work with you on that. But by all means, stay in close contact with your builders because things are taking longer to build. And the other thing I was going to throw out, they're costing a little more to build now. It is interesting. I just read an article today about how housing prices have dropped in the last couple months. So they're saying, yeah, they've dropped 8%. Well, last year they were up 25 and 30%, and now they've dropped 8%. So they're still up. So if you wrote a policy a year ago for a builder, chances are it's not written for the right amount of money. So you need to check with your builders and say, how much does it cost you to build that thing now? And it's like, well, it was $1 million and now it's $1.2 million. So you need to notify us immediately and say, I want to increase the value to $1.2 million. And we will go back to the inception of the policy and increase it. But now you're fully covered and we don't have a problem. So I guess the moral of the whole story is things are taking longer to build and costing more to build. So communicate with your underwriters to make sure you have the proper coverage. Good question. Very good question.
All right. Does your program cover pools and boat docks?
I'm sorry, Darcy, does it cover what?
Pools and boat docks.
Pools and boat docks. Okay, so we exclude waterborne property. So a dock would not be covered, but a pool would be covered. So you're building a house, and part of building the house is building a pool. So it's all included in the completed value of the structure. We're off and running. That's no problem. If they're building a freestanding garage, as long as you tell us, that's covered. The landscaping is fully covered. The fences around the building is fully covered. So pretty much everything's covered. But if they are building a dock and it's a dock that obviously sticks out over the water, that is not covered. That's waterborne property. Pool's fine, no docks. Good question.
All right. Building off of that, would you cover a retaining wall?
Yeah, anything that's on that project that's part of the building of that house is covered. Even something as abstract as the land clearing and building a retaining wall, that's all part of the building that house. That's all covered. I get asked questions a lot about solar panels. Well, if the solar panels are part of us, we're insuring the whole project. We're insuring the building of a house, and the solar panels are just part of that project. They're covered. Now, if you brought me a contractor that did nothing but solar panels and you wanted some kind of coverage, I would not do that. But if it's part of building the house, we would do it. Kind of the same way we look at pools. I would probably not do a pool contractor that does nothing but pools. But if it's part of the overall building of a house and the pool or the solar panels or whatever is part of it, then that would be included in our policy to be covered. Hopefully that kind of makes it self-explanatory. Good question.
All right. Thanks, Jeff. We are at time today. There was a request to go back to the contact slide before this one.
All right. And like I said, I think the number we want to emphasize today is 800-944-4649. 7472. We have now. It is funny. I'll have an agent call me once in a while and say, "Yeah, I called and nobody answered the phone." I said, "Well, sometimes we're very, very busy, so leave a message. So when you call the 800 number, you can leave a message, and we will get back to you. Hopefully, somebody answers. We do most of the time, but go ahead and leave a message for us on that 800 number, and we will get back to you as quickly as possible." So once again, V squared 800 number. And there's my direct line. You can always call me, but I really want to push the 800 number even more than my direct line, because I do get calls sometimes from my West Coast buddies after hours, because we are East Coast company, and I will pick up the phone if you call me. But most of the time, just leave a message on the 800 number, and you'll get service that way.